There's actually a lot of competition for the second video of the day. I'm not sure I'll get to a third, but man, there's the James Gunn rehire stuff. There's obviously that dude that made a crazy video about me. Then there's also the Robert Spencer situation. And I thought, well, my Battlefield 5 video did really well, so I can afford to put out a video that might be a little more boring, but it happens to be a bit of a bigger deal, in my opinion. It may not be as interesting, but it's a scary topic. And that is now the overreach, basically the banning of Robert Spencer from Patreon via Mastercard. So this is the first time that we've seen publicly that the payment processor has interrupted the chain of payment to ban a customer. I don't know if they've banned his personal credit cards. I assume they did, if he has any. And we saw this basically with Stripe as well. Stripe has a propensity to enforce their activism on customers. We saw this the last week with Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform. It's like kind of a do-it-yourself shopping cart for web platforms, banning the sales of certain firearm pieces and parts. Where have all the capitalists gone? I don't know. But the short version is Robert Spencer. He is a scholar, basically, of Islamic culture. And according to a fan of his, he regularly debates Islamic fundamentalists, but his message is more all-encompassing against Islam than someone like Majid. Spencer looks at as a much, much larger number of Muslims that are an issue. So he's a little more extreme, but he's not really an anti-Islam guy. He just is more of a reform guy. And again, we don't know if there are any conversations between him and Mastercard. Before this, we only know what we know, and that is that publicly Patreon had responded to him, why, and we're going to go through that. Also, a friend of the channel, call him Kevin, helped pour through the actual terms of service of Mastercard, because I do, like to at least go a little bit further and look into it. And, basically just like any job that's at will employment, the TLDR version, according to after going through something like 350 pages of poorly formatted text, here's what it had. After all the reading, the conclusion that I've drawn is as follows: Mastercard can for any reason, without notice, decide that a customer is, quote, damaging their Mastercard's goodwill or reputation, and punish that customer accordingly. The extension of this clearly includes deciding who their merchants can and cannot do business with. And this is probably something that we as customers have been agreeing to since the beginning of time. Something that is just, hey, it's in the term of service, nobody actually reads it. And you know what, to be honest, even if you disagreed with it, you still want their service, so you take it anyway. And in a lot of ways, like Patreon, now the next tier up, now we have payment processors like Mastercard and Stripe. They have a virtual monopoly. It's at best, probably better described as an oligopoly. You have several people controlling everything and everyone. And I'm at first was hoping for the best, but now I am of a strong stance that we're going to need some government interaction here. What that looks like, I don't know. I've talked about an internet bill of rights and things like that. That may be the way that this looks, but this is getting disgusting. And on the heels of the incoming potential purge on Twitter, who the hell cares anyway? Hope they do purge me. It'll save me some time. His stuff is getting scary, and we see it as politically motivated. I do. That is my opinion, especially since Mastercard didn't provide any reason for his ban. Recently, Alex Jones and Gavin McInnes have been banned from various social media platforms in a desperate attempt by the left to ensure that the 2016 elections aren't repeated in 2018. Now, that's this author's opinion, Robert Spencer. So you can see where he places himself firmly on the conservative side, at least currently favoring that. It's his opinion. It's certainly how it looks. But it's also easy to forget that, most people aren't on Twitter. That's something to hold some hope in. They are indeed private companies, but they have a virtual monopoly today over the means of communication, and that once they start banning people because they don't like what they say, they've set a precedent that is imbecile to survive, to the survival of free society. I don't know if I said that right. In a missile. I don't know if I said that right. I haven't seen that word before. That's a big-brained word, apparently. And if only approved viewpoints can be aired, we live in a totalitarian state, not a free society, and the effects of this will reverberate in our lives in ways we cannot imagine. I don't disagree. We're going to go through the letter, the communication he had with Patreon, but that's another thing. The public square, you see that word, the public space. We see that thrown around more and more now in relation to these social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Now we see Stripe, Mastercard, Patreon. They control directly and indirectly, as we saw the collusion to ban Alex Jones, the public space. And it's one thing to have even the strictest set of rules that people agree to, right? And then to ban those people. There isn't, even if we suspect that there's collusion or that it's politically motivated, it's difficult to mount a case. But when you have what appears to be very selective enforcement of rules in places like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, thankfully, currently to a lesser extent, but Alex Jones kind of proved us wrong. It's like once you become the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. There are a lot of people that probably have the same opinions that Alex Jones does, even his most extreme ones. And there are probably a lot of them on YouTube, but they weren't a big enough target for these companies like BuzzFeed and CNN to lobby against. It's frightening. And, 5 years ago, I would not want any government interaction, but it's clear that we're in a weird situation where, getting banned off Twitter, okay, fine. Getting banned off Facebook, okay, fine. But being banned off all of it certainly makes a case that you've been silenced, you've been targeted. The question is, a lot of these secondary people like Vimeo that banned him, they only did it after they knew there were no repercussions for YouTube and everyone else. Did he violate anything with them? That's a question that probably a gigantic lawsuit is going to answer. And I am firmly in the you should just bake the damn cake, but if you don't want to, you don't have to camp. I'm a capitalist. Make your money. Just because someone uses your payment processor doesn't mean you agree with their political ideology. So to then enforce a ban on that person based on their opinions tells me that it's completely politically motivated. And there's just really, because these are companies have shareholders. It is their number one job to maximize return for their shareholders. Okay? If they act in a way that makes them less money, then there's really no business case for it. Was there some boycott going on of Mastercard because this guy had a Patreon? I never heard of it. I never saw it. So he gets a letter from Patreon. I got the same one from April. Same person. Hi, I'm April. I'm the Trust and Safety team from Patreon. I've been notified by Mastercard that we must remove your account from Patreon effective immediately. Mastercard has a stricter set of rules and regulations than Patreon, and they reserve the right to not offer their services to accounts of their choosing. This is the line with their terms of service, which means it's something we must comply by. I paid out your remaining $475 via direct deposit. Sorry for the inconvenience and frustration this may cause. They've given no warning. According to Spencer, I've been giving no warning before this anything amiss with my account, which at the time consisted of a single video announcing the initiative, along with a note announcing I would be starting a live stream. So he wasn't even using his Patreon platform. That was it. So what violated their rules? They hadn't explained, but I went to my Patreon account. I got this. Your account has been disabled. If you believe there's an error, several back to April. I see my account is disabled. Explanation, please. No answer. Later on Twitter, however, when I announced this, Patreon responded. Imagine my shock. Hi, Robert. We emailed you earlier today, which explained that unfortunately Mastercard required us to remove your account. Why? No explanation from them or Mastercard. And this is, as he said, plainly disingenuous. They tried to save face by saying, we've been emailing with Robert today to explain the situation as unfortunately Mastercard. It's like they're using Mastercard as a shield. Of course, what is almost certainly going on here, this is his opinion, is Mastercard and Patreon is deleting accounts that have been smeared by the hard left propaganda hate groups like the Southern Poverty Law Center, despite the fact that the SPLC has been resoundingly discredited. The SPLC defames me as a hate group leader and anti-Muslim extremist. For the record, my response to their charges offered, despite the fact that Patreon offered me no chance to appeal or rebut whatever charges got me banned. I mean, the SPLC is their own form of mafia, in a way, a bully. People on the left, far left, are the only people that even take them seriously because they call everybody, a baddie. If you've ever said anything remotely, anti-PC, they'll label you with some of the most disgusting language possible. Like the stupid anti-racism watchdog on Twitter, like everything's, it's insane. And you can see he point by point. Spencer is one of the most prolific anti-Muslim figures in the state. I'm not anti-Muslim. I oppose jihad terror and Sharia oppression of women, non-Muslims, and others. I'm no more anti-Muslim than foes of Nazis or anti-German. I mean, this is the man's words himself. If he was what they say he is, I would assume he would accept it and use some other way to fund him, some sort of crypto or something like that. Things are going to get worse with censorship. The government is probably going to have to get involved, or we need an actual capitalist to do something about this. Because even if you have something like the failed maker support, or you have like Patreon, or all these are free starter, all these people pop up and say they're free speech. But what happens is then the credit card companies just say, nah, we're not free speech. So the fix isn't a free speech Patreon. It's some sort of Bill of Rights for people when we have so few options to process payments and things like this. There has to be a better way. And I'm hoping that some madman like Elon Musk will come in and develop some solution, some free speech solution that can fund alternative media. I consider myself in that group, while not necessarily a news channel. Certainly I'm at risk. And it's scary to me, the fact that you could just be banned. I'm banned from Patreon too. And they didn't give me any chance to appeal it. They said I doxed people, which I didn't. I listed publicly available information, and they didn't care. They just banned me, no questions asked. And there were other options at that time. That was before the next layer got added on, when credit card companies then started sticking their nose in. So what's after that? Then the federal banks. This is In many ways, the most important issue I'll cover today, as kind of boring as it may be. I'll link this article in the description. You can read in his own words what he thinks. And I'm interested in what you think. Where do you think this is going? Let me know in the comment section down below. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.